This is the World Organic News for the week ending 17th of July 2017. Jon Moore reporting. This week we look at the Tesla battery in South Australia, one version of vermicomposting, and two examples of intensive organic veggie production. To the Tesla battery, the post entitled Explainer, What Can Tesla's Giant South Australian Battery Achieve? From the blog Random Thoughts explains. It was announced this past week that Tesla has won a tender to set up a 100 megawatt battery in conjunction with the Hornsdale wind farm. Little background is necessary. Back in September 2016, a huge storm rolled across South Australia. A gas-fired electricity generator was closed down by its operators on the ground that electricity spot prices were likely to be too low that day to justify running the plant. As the storm rolled in, some wind farms were powered down and some high-tension power lines were ripped out of the ground. Widespread blackouts resulted. For some reason, members of the farther right of politics in this country have a problem with wind power in particular and renewables in general. So the knee-jerk reaction was to blame the wind farms, even when transmission lines were ripped out of the ground. So electricity supply is political here in Australia. Will the new Tesla battery system help? Probably, but not a great deal. Quote, the project will incorporate a 100 megawatt peak output battery with 129 megawatt hours of storage, alongside Neomanry's Hornsdale wind farm near Jamestown. When fully charged, we estimate that this will be enough to power about 8,000 homes for one full day, or more than 20,000 homes for a few hours at grid failure. But this is not the complete picture. The battery will support grid stability, rather than simply power homes on its own. It's the first step towards a future in which renewable energy and storage work together. End quote. It is the grid stability in the example set which is of the greatest outcome of this project. Once the idea of batteries set within the grid becomes established, price signals will complete the job. Now, we don't just need electric batteries. Batteries are nothing but a chemical form of storage. The authors of the posts are themselves working on a different form of energy storage, off-river pumped hydro energy storage. This uses the mature technology of the hydro industry to store renewable energy in a form of potential energy rather than chemical. By using renewable energy to pump water from, say, the bottom of a mine to a reservoir at ground level, the energy is held and then released back through the system to turn the potential energy into electric by running the pumps backwards and turning them into generators, allowing the water to pool at the bottom of the mine again. In essence, the storage form is somewhat immaterial. It is the storage to stabilise the grid which is most important. Creative minds are being applied to this matter and the future looks bright. There is some argument that microgrids rather than nationwide grids are a better solution. Localisation and interconnection of generating nodes requires less infrastructure and therefore less loss of power moving electricity from, say, a hydro scheme in one state to consumers in another. Indeed, the local seems to be the answer to many of the issues we face today. I have argued elsewhere in the blog for localised food production in a piece entitled In Defence of Modern Yeomanry, Small Mixed Farms is the Answer. Links in the show notes. Food, electricity, politics are all better serve the citizenry if localised. In that spirit, we have a blog, EcoBLOGic, entitled Vermicomposting, Tips from First-Timers. Dealing with, in inverted commas, waste at a local level retains nutrients where they can be reapplied to a local food growing system. Traditional composting can be intimidating and time-consuming. Vermicomposting, using compost worms to process organic matter, is an alternative method with a quicker turnaround. It is my preferred method. Long quote. In the I Love a Clean San Diego office, we have multiple team members who collect food waste to be brought back to their composting bins. This past June, Mariah and Lauren made their own vermicomposting bins and began their composting journeys. With a few simple tools, we enjoyed time in the sun making the bins and learning all the details of vermicomposting. Both Mariah and Lauren have been using their vermicomposting bins about a month now. With that experience under their belt, we checked back to see how the process had been going. Lauren explained, I have to say it's intimidating to have another thing to take care of in my household, But the simplicity and beauty of this natural process are what astonishes me the most, day after day." End quote. Mariah shared how having Emily, our education manager and composting expert in the office, as a resource impacted her experience. Having Emily as a resource has been super helpful. She has even responded to Snapchats I've sent to her of the bin to let me know if it looks like it is healthy and thriving. Emily's help and the resources in our office have led to a pretty healthy bin. The worms are breeding and eating everything much quicker than I expected. End long quote. The point being, it is possible to go from zero to an effective system quickly. The vermicompost is wonderful stuff. I think of it as rocket fuel for plants. Have a read of the piece for more info, it is well worth it. To continue with this local theme, we have 2 video posts, one from Permie Flix, entitled 1.5 acres of high-intensity no-till vegetable production, the Neversink farm, and from Growingarden, rural New Zealand quarter-acre permaculture farm/market garden. The principles explored in these videos are permaculture in nature. Things like, open inverted commas, waste is simply a resource in the wrong place, close inverted commas, and, again opening inverted commas, ensure every part of the system provides at least 2 outcomes, closed inverted commas. The income potential is quite staggering, as is the production without large investment in fossil-fueled machinery. The systems basically run themselves, once set up, and humans maintain the system, collecting useful surpluses. Both videos run 20 minutes plus. Both fit nicely with the idea I suggested in the defence of Yeomanry, turning golf courses into market gardens. Even if we don't liberate these landscapes yet, the principles discussed in these videos are applicable to suburban backyards, suburban front yards, and even to balconies in high-rise apartments. On that note, I'm putting together a small e-book, a 1 square metre garden, year-round veggies from almost no space. I'll keep you posted when that comes out. So we can live well, we can live healthily, and we can do it with green energy if we put our minds to it. And on that happy note, we will end this week's episode. If you've liked what you've heard, please tell everyone you know any way you can. I'd also really appreciate a review on iTunes or the podcatcher of your choice. This may or may not help others to find us, but it gives this podcast an enormous thrill. Thanks in advance. Any suggestions, feedback or criticism of the podcast or blog are most welcome. Email me at podcast@worldorganicnews.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back in a week.